That's it. I'm just starting our intro, and if you want to have a show, you'll follow suit. And if not, I'll find out at the end of my intro.
Go on then.
Can I start with hello, hello? You did not write that in the script, but I feel like I need to start with hello, hello.
Hello, hello.
Hello, hello. Welcome to WHAQ, a talk show centered around the beauty of queerness and the challenges it brings, with hosts pansexual princess Get Lizzie With It and the sapphic sensation Games Mistress.
This week, we wanted to talk about coming out, where the phrase came from and why it's such a huge part of the queer experience. Or is it?
So is it?
Is it? I guess we're going to discuss that. Spend the next however long talking about it. To me, it's a yes and no. I don't really have a definitive answer. Maybe I will by the end of the stream. Who knows?
Yeah. But you did have a query.
I did have a query. So my first query of the night, I wanted to know where the phrase coming out originated. So we did a little bit of research. I'm first going to put the question to chat. Does anyone in chat know where the phrase coming out or coming out of the closet originated from? Because Gemma already knows. Gemma knew this because she is a fountain of information. And literally, I'm like, oh, I've got a question. She's like, oh yeah, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, shit, fuck my drag, okay. Okay, so Flinksy doesn't know the definition or the origin for a fact, but had learned it in his youth. Okay.
What did you learn it as, Flinksy? Because here's the thing. There might be like a place where it originated, but if we have stories within our communities about what it means or where it's from or why we use it, those are valid too, right? Like we can talk about the first time it was used and call that its point of origin through etymology. But if there's different mythos about why we use it or what it means or what it's saying, those incorporate into the collective experience as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So, like, it doesn't always have to be by the book, right?
Mm-hmm.
Go on.
Well, and I just think that we have a long history of just because that's where something started doesn't mean that it can't be used in different ways. It can't be reclaimed in different ways. Like language is not, as much as the purists would like to believe it's like a set in stone thing, language is evolving all the time with culture. Culture evolves language evolves culture. Like it's a continuous thing.
Yeah, absolutely. It's always going to be like ever evolving, right? Like what we know it as today, it ain't going to be that soon, is it? So I did a little research for this episode.
Can we hear what people in chat said first?
Yes.
Just so we don't like steal their thunder. Flinksy talks about National Coming Out Day, which like has been a thing for a long time. And so so like there's this like National Coming Out Day movement, and like I think it's pretty international at this point. We call it national, but a lot of the national days are pretty international.
I mean, since we've been together, we've realised that most of them are just a day. Yeah.
Well, I think the internet has changed that too, right? Like we call something national, and it's like because that's at that point where the reach is. But now with international stuff, it's kind of everywhere.
Well, because some random woman in Canada retweeted it was National whatever day, and I retweeted it. People are going to think it's my National whatever day too, right? Like, no.
And Jinx mentioned the hiding in the closet and then coming out of the closet as like stopping hiding who you truly are. I like Tom's version, which is like
similar.
Makes it sound like there's something to hide when it could be more of a sense of inner discovery. Like I have been doing all of this percolating on the inside and now I'm sharing it with the world, which I think is a really beautiful idea as well. Like it's this internal journey, and then we externalize it when we come out. Love that idea.
Or just very literally when you have to sort through your wardrobe. You know, you got to bag something up for the charity shop, and you're taking it out of the closet. You know, maybe, I don't know. I like to oversimplify things. So I think it might be fair to say that most of us are aware that coming out is short for coming out of the closet. Yeah, like the dress at the back of the closet, as Jinx says. But it actually derives from, so let me get my words straight. So it's back from when we would invite queer people to come out into gay society. So you would be invited to come out, and that phrase "coming out" was actually borrowed from the debutante society, where women of high society would be invited to come out into high society. So that's where it was borrowed from. And it's believed that the out of the closet piece is just literally just mixing up something that Gemma likes to do, mixing up a couple of idioms. So it is a combination of coming out into society and your skeletons in the closet. So kind of what we just touched on, really, about hiding something from the outside world. So yeah, it was thought to be a combination of those two sayings, stemming from like the history of mainly men who remained covert throughout their homosexuality as sort of a skeleton in the closet. Yeah. But it's less of a shocking secret now for most, hopefully.
Yeah, I think it depends on family, like your family culture, where you are, and stuff like that. Jinx, jokes aside, it is very much like one of the things I think about is like ballroom and balls, and how so much of even the categories within ballroom draw from high society and draw from things where gay people have like traditionally been excluded from. And so whether that is like businesswoman realness as a category in a ball in 1989 in New York, or that is this version of like coming out to gay society, like it's a debutante ball, like someone's having their quinceanera. So much of it has been about taking things that were seen as rites of passage or things that were available to most people and bringing them into the queer circle so that queer people who've been excluded from those practices get their own version. Same
Yeah.
with queer prom, same as, stuff like that.
So I think
Yes, they
actually,
still do, Flinksy.
like it's like when you think of that history of the term, like maybe less so the skeleton part, but inviting someone to come out to stop hiding away, being invited to join a community feels nice, right? Like that's
Well, and I
nice.
think I think that's one of the things that a little bit has gotten lost in our modern interpretations of the word, is that like I think when you talk about coming out as like coming out into gay society, what it actually is like you are entering into a community, and less about where you've been and more about where you're going. And I think that sometimes when we come out, um, like for some people it's missing that community part. It's missing that like, what am I joining? And my hope is that for queer folks, whatever version of coming out you're doing, you get to step into or move into a community that's welcoming, that's helping you with this process, and it's less about just floating in the ether because you've cut something behind you and you
Yeah.
don't have the thing in front of you.
Absolutely, and like Jinx says, to belong, like, and I don't know, it just conjures up sort of images of like a hand being held out for you to grab, and like, I don't know, skip gaily into a sunset or whatever.
Yep.
So Moni says, to this day I'm not sure if Lizzo's song About Damn Time isn't actually about coming out.
Yeah.
But we said, well, yeah. So Garrett in the chat is also saying like never thought about it like that, but it could be maybe not about sexuality in Lizzo's case, but your true self. But also she has said in interview that she is queer, or she at least identifies as not straight. She identifies as some kind of with some kind of pansexuality. She falls in love with people rather than gender. So maybe we'll send her a link to the VOD. See if she responds.
So, I mean, I think that like there's a long history of coming out as being like a quintessential part of the queer experience. And because Liz and I are both in our 30s, despite coming out at very different times in our life, it coming out was a thing for us. It doesn't mean that it was like a big like
Hurrah to do.
big to do, but it was a marked experience, right? And for both of us, I think for me for sure, it felt like something important for me to do, which I think is funny. Once I talk a little bit more about my coming out story, we actually didn't decide which one of us was going to talk about our coming out story first. What do you think, Liz?
Um, Maybe we'll put it to chat in a minute. Ramp up that interactivity. But yeah, like for me, it wasn't huge, and obviously we'll go into it in a bit more detail. But like, I felt it needed to be done, and the way that I did it as well, it was kind of like a here's the thing you already know kind of. I don't know, we'll get into it. Oh, I don't know, who wants to go first? Jem, do you want to go first?
I can go first.
Go on, go first.
So I have like a number of coming out stories, which I think is funny because all of them have to do with sexuality and not gender identity. I am a cis woman and I am a cis woman. Like I have never had to do the gender coming out story. And so that's and we'll talk a little bit later about like coming out as what. Because that's a question I ask now when I hear like someone's come out. I'm like, "Oh, in what way?" But like I've come out a few times. When I came out the very very first time, I came out as bisexual. I was 14 years old. And here's the thing, like content warning maybe for like traumatic coming out story, except it doesn't feel that way to me, but I recognize that my like state of things is different. So like how I interpret it. So there you go, maybe. And I was like kicked out for like when I came out. So I'd come out to like friends and I'd come out to like I think everyone at my school knew because I was dating a girl. So like for me at 14, I was dating a girl. And so it was pretty hard. And the year was 1999. I started dating her in 1998. And so everyone knew because I was dating a girl and we didn't hide it, which like, I don't know if we even talked about hiding it, to be honest. And like, I like, it was obvious, but I decided to like tell my mom. And my mom is the less accepting of my two parents, interestingly enough. My dad is much more progressive than my mom.
Was that sorry to interrupt, is that why you decided to tell her first? Did that factor in?
I told her like no, I was gonna
sorry
like no, it's okay. Part of it is that I had already told an aunt and the aunt was super supportive. And she was just like, that's great, that's good, like happy for you kind of thing. And I got into an argument with my mom because my mom and I had a very volatile relationship. I ended up moving out permanently 2 years later, so it is what it is. This is maybe not surprising. And I got into an argument with my mom, and my mom is a very narcissistic, sort of vindictive person when she fights. and she was certain that I like knew nothing about the world. So I told her I was bisexual, basically, and that my aunt already knew and all these people already knew, and my mother, who believed she knew everything, actually knew nothing, and it was intentionally to hurt her. Which is like not healthy. But like I recognize my relationship with my parents isn't healthy. Like the
Yeah.
judge recognized my relationship with my parents wasn't healthy and removed me from their
Yeah.
home. So like that's not surprising to anyone. Um, because she was just so certain that she knew everything and I was certain she did not. Um, and she kicked me out of the house for it, and it was the best thing ever because I went and lived with my girlfriend for 2 weeks. So like
Nice.
I know that sounds awful, but like at the same time, I was just like, you're exactly like you've just proven my point.
Yeah, like it wasn't
Oh.
a surprise. You weren't like, holy shit, what am I gonna do? Like,
Yeah. Yeah. Um, and Flinksy, I agree. Like usually I think we see mums as more supportive than dads, but my dad had grown up in like a more left wing kind of like he was like a union guy and da da da. So he had sort of like some of those things going for him. And my mum was Roman Catholic. So there was like
there we
French
go.
Roman Catholic. There was some stuff happening.
Yeah.
Um, and so my mom, and like to this day, my as far as I know, like I haven't talked to them in years now, but like my dad's best friend is a lesbian and my mom doesn't like people who are like that. Like it's a weird dichotomy happening there. So like um but like anyway, so I like and then I was out and I was out for the like all of high school. That was grade 9 for me. So for those who don't know, North America high school is usually grade 9, 10, 11, 12. I was out for grade 9, came out in grade 9, 9, 10, 11, 12. Went to university immediately from that and was out as like bisexual and then had a hard time because I knew I was queer. I wasn't using that term at the time, not as like a label, like I was using it generally, but not as a label. And bisexual never felt, not never felt right. When I came out, the option was straight, gay, or bisexual, in my understanding. Those were the three things I knew. And I also knew that because I was what I believed was like attracted to guys as a woman, the option was bisexual.
Yeah.
And I had a girlfriend, so I wasn't straight. Like,
So that removes that one.
so like I used the term that I knew, and so it like fit well enough, but it wasn't until years later I was like, that never fit. Like it never felt right. And I discovered the term polysexual and came out as polysexual when I was like mid 20s, and or like late 20s, and it fit at that time really well because it was a way to talk about multiple gender and like influenced sexuality without it being sort of like I recognize that there can be nuance in the statement bisexuality. It
Yeah.
didn't feel nuanced enough for me. So this is all just for me. This isn't about terms being right or wrong. Um and so used polysexual for a while and I really liked it. And I say that because I stopped using it because I'm also polyamorous. And people confused polysexual with polyamorous all the time. People didn't understand it. I ended up in these weird arguments on the internet where people are like, why are people making up words when like the word pansexual exists and the word like bisexual exists? Like you don't need another word for this. And I was just like, I'm done.
Okay.
It actually made it worse. It actually made it worse. I didn't feel any more invited. I felt like I was just fighting for my identity everywhere. I had a brief flirtation with identifying as pansexual. That never worked. And then I just went to queer. And I left it as queer for years. And it was complicated because I had partners who transitioned. I had partners who were cross dressers. I had partners who had like who were non-binary. There was a lot of like gender exploration happening with lots of people in my life that I fully supported and had no issues being involved with. And when I say no issues, I mean it didn't cause any cognitive issue with me, like, and my sexuality.
Sometimes the catch-all's quite nice, huh?
Yeah, and so the catch-all worked for a while, and then a couple years ago, it's been about a year and a half, I finally like came out as lesbian, and we're gonna do a show later on about comp het, which is something that a lot of women who are into women talk about is this compulsory heterosexuality, and how this societal idea where it's assumed women are straight really impacts on the ability for women to figure out that they're attracted to other women or that they're not attracted to men. And the short version of talking about compet is it's this idea where no matter what you're feeling inside, you're told it's normal to feel that way and be straight. It doesn't matter if what you feel is, I don't like men. Women are told that's normal. Women don't like their husbands. And like for people who think that's a joke, that's not a joke. We're actually told that. There's actually whole groups of women who sit around and talk about how they hate their husbands and don't want to be with them. And they've never found them attractive. They've never found a man attractive. Ugh, men is why are men? All of this stuff. And that is seen as 100% normal for 100% straight women. When you are a queer woman who's trying to figure out how you feel about men, and you're told over and over, it is normal to have zero attraction to men. It is normal to have zero interest in being with them. It is normal to be 100% annoyed all the time. You're still straight.
Yeah.
It's really hard to figure out that you're not straight.
Why are you with that person or that gender if you don't like them? Like, yeah.
Yes, all of the chat, right? Like, and so for me, it was this thing where I was in relationships with people I think who would identify as men at times, but had like gender variance and stuff like that, which is why I'm having the caveat. And it became this thing where I was like, there are men aplenty. If I'm looking to hook up, there's 10 guys to hook up with for every one woman to hook up with. And even fewer percentage-wise of people not in one of those two categories.
Yeah.
It's easy. It's fine. I've been told it's fine. I've been told this is normal. It's normal to like want to hook up with someone, settle for a guy, and then be annoyed with him the whole time. That's just men. That's literally like the norm. And I did some exploring, and I was like, I'm a fucking dyke. Lesbian.
Do you know what?
Normal. It is not for me, not normal to be annoyed at the idea of dating a man and do it anyway because it's easy.
Yeah.
For me.
Some of us just do that for decades.
And that's when I figured out, like, that's when I figured out that what I was feeling fit with the term lesbian in a way for me that worked. And I was settled on that identity because I was no longer doing the mental gymnastics of like, fuck, men annoy me, but I keep dating them because they're around and it's normal to hate them all. And don't be like, to be really clear, I don't hate men. I love men as friends. I love them as colleagues. I love them as, but in relationships, in those interpersonal relationships, I was just like, oh, you're gay, Jem. You're gay. That's what's happening. You're gay. And I think that some of it developed over time, right? Like, I don't think that I was ever not polysexual or whatever, like those other labels. Like, I think this developed over time. But there's a whole bunch of women who, in their like late 30s, mid 30s, like I have, who are later life lesbians. There's a whole term for it. Who go through this experience,
which Gemma is enjoying on the old TikTok quite a lot.
Yes, TikTok and stuff like that for sure, but TikTok especially, Les Talk, full of later life lesbians. And for some, it's realizing that for years they've been a lesbian but have been not aware of it, and for some, it's actually that as they've grown older, their attraction to men has lessened, and I think I'm a bit of both. I think that it's like, yes, I think there was genuine attraction at one point. I think that I then continued to play out that norm and didn't realize it. And so I think it's a bit of both for me.
Yeah.
So that was, and so I came out about a year and a half ago on lesbian like not this year's, well, I guess 2023, not 2022's Lesbian Visibility Day, but 2021. And I feel really like happy with that. I also feel very like not conflicted about the fact that I'm still like very willing to have sexual encounters with men, without recognizing that it like is not based, like I'm a pretty easygoing person that way. I'm not seeking it out. I don't really have that desire. I'm comfortable with it though. I'm not sex repulsed. I view it as very much like, you know, asexuals who are not like sex repulsed and who are happy to have sex with their partners and it's fine. It's just not really like a driving force for them.
Yeah.
Same for me with men. I'm homo romantic for sure. I consider myself sapphic because I think that's a more inclusive term, because trans women are women and non-binary folks are valid and all of those things. So I use the term sapphic. But yeah, so that's where I'm at with that. And like it's been a journey to come out. And for each time it felt important to come out. It felt important to come out to prove my mom wrong. And before that, it had felt important to come out so that I could just be myself with my girlfriend. And then it felt important to be on that journey. And I look at the years of trying, like, Liz and I even talked about this early on in our relationship and before we were in a relationship, my struggle to find a label. I really wanted a label that fit me. And for some people, labels don't matter. For me, it really mattered.
Yeah.
And I think part of that struggle was just the externalized version of me being like, there is conflict on the inside about how I feel. And it's being externalized with this discomfort with a label.
Yeah.
And when I came out as a lesbian in 2021, it was a choice that I made, knowing I could have really been happy still holding the title queer. And I debated because there's so many anti-trans lesbians and there's so many lesbians who are biphobic and there's so many lesbians who say things like, I only date other lesbians because women who date men are not for me, as if that's a valid statement. And I still encounter it. And I actually like sometimes get in arguments on the internet where I say to people like, you're the reason I didn't identify as a lesbian for 10 years because I was afraid of people thinking that I'd be like you. Because there's these people who say this stuff and I didn't want to be that. I didn't want to be associated with that. And then I decided it was actually really important to be a trans inclusive, not biphobic, not panphobic representation of lesbianism. So that's what I am. I use the term to reclaim it from the people who've decided lesbians are fucking all supporting J.K. Rowling. Like, yeah. So that's why it was important to come out. It was a choice at that point. I could have happily just been queer, like just, you know, simply been queer. But it was a political statement for me to claim that term, be open about who I am, celebrate the fact that I found a label that fit, and also tell people who had that same label but believed it justified awful things to go fuck themselves.
Hell yeah. I think that, like, going on to, and love labels if you want, don't like them if you want. Like, absolutely. I like labels. I find them really, really helpful for me. They help me to sort, you know, things that I didn't fully understand into something that I can comprehend a little bit better. But I think when you, just on the back of your point there about like using that label to reclaim it and to show people that, you know, to prove a point and to give that fuck you, like, labels are important for visibility. And I think that's something that is sometimes forgotten. And like I said, your opinion is up to you. If labels aren't your thing, cool. But like, it really does help with that visibility. It really does, like, that's why they're so important to me, because I didn't understand who I was until I saw that visibility, till I saw that label. So, yeah, I think that's important. Are you going to be doing any more coming out, do you think?
I don't know. I'm open to it. I think that I am out. There's nothing that I'm not out about right now. But I also really embrace that, like, for me, even when labels were uncomfy and stuff like that, it wasn't a lie. Yeah. I was doing my best. Like, I was never lying, like, but like I was on a journey. I'm still on a journey. I think that if we'd had this discussion 2 years ago today, I was like literally searching for a new male submissive as a dominant, like literally. And I never would have guessed that I would be like immigrating to the UK to be in a exclusive relationship with another woman and identifying as a lesbian. And that's amazing. And like, who knows what the next 10 years brings. I'm really open to continuing to figure out who I am and allowing myself to grow. So like, I don't know, like maybe I'm open to it. And I do think that because of who I am and my love of labels and my love of expressing that, I think that if there are changes, I probably will come out again
Hell
because
yeah.
I share those stories. So yeah, I'm not planning anything. There's nothing hiding.
But I think as well, like, you know, like we said at the top of the episode, like, that is part, for me, part of my experience so far of the queer experience. Like, you get the opportunity to come out over and over again. You get the opportunity to celebrate that difference once you've worked it out. And if you haven't worked it out, that's okay. And if you work it out again, that's okay. You get to come out and celebrate over and over again. And I think there's something really, like, gorgeous about that.
I do too. And I think that one of the beautiful things about coming out is you get to talk to people about what they're actually sharing. Like if someone says like not in a burdensome way. Like if someone comes out as asexual and someone's like, I don't believe in asexuality, like you need to explain and justify. What I mean is like, what does that mean for you? Is this like,
It's an opportunity to share.
Like, are you pansexual and panromantic? Is like, do you feel different attraction to different genders? Does it wane? Does it like having those discussions, not in a way where you're putting someone on a spot, but where you're sharing and you want to
Yeah.
know more
That's
about
cool.
them.
That's super cool.
I think opening the door to the closet can be opening the door to a conversation too.
This woman is full of sound bites. That was lovely. I liked that a lot. I guess it's my turn.
It is your turn.
Do you reckon we could have a quick 5 minutes?
Sure.
I'm starting to squirm on my seat a little bit. I need a wee wee. I've drank too much tea.
Yeah, for sure. We could have a quick break.
Cool. All right. Let's see if this screen works after what's been going on. But yeah, we need a wee. I'm doing an Amanda. I will see you shortly. Are you gonna mute out? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. See you in a minute. Hello, hello.
Hello, hello.
Welcome on in, Raiders. Panda, thank you so much for that raid. What were you up to?
Hey, Panda Party. How was things? What were you doing today?
Panda party. Could you all hear me peeing? I don't know what's going on with my microphone. Honestly, my OBS said it was muted, but... No peeing, just the door. Okay. I mean, I've got quite a big bladder. That's not true at all.
Thanks for coming in, Raiders. What were you crocheting today, Panda?
Well, spoiler alert. Thanks, Rick.
Yeah, thanks, Rick. A handled organization bag has my name written all over it. Like, I now need to check out the VOD for sure.
Don't let it hit you on the way out.
Usually I watch Panda on a Monday, but I will admit that today's been a bit of a journey, and so I'm usually there.
Hang on, how did you all hear a door go? I didn't shut the door.
Okay, Liz, can we focus? We're done with that part of the journey.
Interesting.
I'll have to check them out, Panda. I'm really, like, crocheting up a storm right now because I'm trying to use a fair amount of my yarn collection before I move, because I'm not moving it with me. So trying to get some projects done is what I'm saying. Lots of cat toys and stuff. I'm making some cat blankets, actually, for the shelter so that they can have blankets for inside the carriers for adoption and stuff. So always looking for some yarn projects. Yeah, welcome in. So happy you're here. We love the Panda Den. Yes, that's exactly it. Stash Busters. And Panda, it's going to be really interesting when I move to the UK, because instead of a number 4 yarn being the standard, like the way it is here, it's a number 3 yarn. So I'm just getting used to, like, moving to a different yarn weight. Anyway, sorry, I'm just chatting.
No, carry on. This is now a craft stream. I could grab my stitch in. We can carry on.
Everything, yeah, Mr. Wibble, the yarn in the UK drives on the left. Oh, that's so true. Go ahead. I'm going to stop doing mousy hands. Let's talk coming out.
We can't see mousy hands. It's fine. Your nameplate is over the top of mousy hands.
Which
almost intentional.
Which I never called mousy hands until Rick named them that. So Rick named them mousy hands.
So we were just discussing Gemma's multiple comings out. What's the plural of coming out?
Coming out?
Comings out.
Yeah, I think it's comings out, but I think that's awkward to say.
Leaving the closets. Coming outie. Lucky outie. Right.
On with it. We're going to be here all day.
Okay, so, coming out. I mean, Gemma probably knows my coming out story better than I do, to be honest, with a memory like mine. Not the coming out tussie. Oh, God.
Focus.
Why did we decide to do this live? So, while Gemma was telling her comings outs, I was being a little bit rude, and was pulling up the texts that I sent to my family group chat the day I came out. So this is what I mean by it wasn't a big thing, but it was a big thing, but it was kind of pivotal and important and not important all at the same time. But I have came out via Twitter thread, which I've lost the thread since, which makes me a little bit sad. I used a series of Alana Wexler gifs, if anyone's a Broad City fan, to sort of illustrate my, stages of coming out. I was very clear in my tweets that I thought everyone suspected, that everyone was aware, but it felt important for me to have a label, as we've already mentioned. So that was friends, colleagues, done. Did that over Twitter. Messaged my family group chat. Yep.
Can we also just, for folks who might not know, like state your relative age at that point?
So I muted my mic then to cough. Did you hear that? You would have. Anyway, let me focus. I've got ADHD. Relative age. So thank you, chat. So this was February 2021. So coming up to 2 years ago. So I would have been 29. So thank you for trying to hand signal the math to me. So yeah, I came out relatively late in life. I sent a message to the family group chat and just said, very casually, good morning. I want to start using the LGBT tag on Twitch and Instagram. So I thought I'd tell you so there's simply no confusion. I then went on to address my sister and say, like, you certainly knew I was queer before I did. But I'm queer. And I followed up with pansexual, I believe. The reason I've never said anything is because I'm very private. I don't really talk much to my family about sex, sexuality, relationships. And then I followed up and said, I never really said anything because I know I'm lucky enough for no one to care, whoever I brought home, which is something that not a lot of people can say. And I thanked them for being lovely, liberal family members who would mostly, as far as I was aware, would accept me for whoever I am, whoever I was, who I ended up being. We had a sweet sort of message exchange. Mum replied with a load of love hearts, followed up with, please don't use the word queer, it's derogatory. And I was like, well, it's not anymore, but thanks, Mum. She then went on to say that she believes there's a little bit of everything in all of us. Whatever that's supposed to mean. But I basically then just carried on with the conversation, just said I wanted to be like, a little bit more open. I thought it was time to start using a label. I had recently also told my parents that I think I had ADHD, or told my mum and my sister that I thought I had ADHD, so we discussed that a little bit. And then my sister followed up and was like, queer's a celebratory word now. And then also gave a little story of her own, which we won't go into. So yeah, it was just very, very, very casual. Yeah, and as Flixie says, it was derogatory back in the day and it's been reclaimed. We recycle. I love that. Yeah, there wasn't a lot to it, but it was important. Like, I had spent a lot of time in my head. I'd spent a lot of time chatting to Jem, chatting to Rick, like in Discord channels, trying to work out what it was. And as Gemma was saying earlier when she was talking about Compet, I had just finished a nearly 10-year relationship with a cis man. And I knew that I had these thoughts and these feelings, and I knew that I had some attraction to people other than just cis men, but didn't believe that it was valid because I had never been with anyone other than a cis man at that point. So it was just pretty dull. It's pretty boring.
But I think like one of the pieces that you didn't touch on, but you have touched on before, so I think it's okay to say, is that like you also had like this had been taught through society that yes, you are attracted to women. That's a straight thing.
Yeah, which sounds so
all straight
wild.
Women are into men or into women. All straight women.
I feel like just remember some kind of magazine or website for women's glossy magazine being like, why do I fantasize about women? Oh, that's normal. Oh, cool, I'm straight. Wicked, I'm with a dude. I occasionally think about women. Straight. Cool.
Yep.
Well,
And,
exactly that, Rick. Like, everyone has a college phase, hee hee.
well, and it's like, to me, it's okay if you are acknowledging your feelings and choosing the label straight. I'm not here to tell you that you're not straight, that you can't call yourself straight. You do you. I'm saying when other people tell people that. Like, this isn't about self-identify. Like, I'm not upset when people self-identify. Like, yes, I've been with women or I'm into women, but I choose the label straight. Cool, boo, you do you. In some cases, maybe check your internalized homophobia, but for the most part, own your label, enjoy it. When someone says to you, I like women, and you tell them that's a straight thing, that's not accurate.
Yeah.
That's not encouraging exploration. That's not what straight is. That's all. And
you
but
can't
here's the
see
thing.
Gemma's hands like.
because I just get so frustrated, because to me it has to do, like, compat, especially with women, liking women, is so much about, like, it doesn't matter what your sexual desires are, perform straightness, woman.
Yeah.
I do believe that people of all genders deal with this, and it looks like different things to different people. Like, there is brutal biphobia against bi men within the gay male community about all sorts of things. Like, I'm not denying any of that at all. But because we are queer women, this is the experience we
This
can
is our
speak to.
experience, yeah.
And it's very much a, like, as Jinx said, a shutdown mechanic. It's very much a control mechanic. Like, you can fantasize about whatever you want. You just keep popping out babies.
Just keep that in your head. Yeah. And carry on. Yeah.
Don't ever believe that you could be anything other than what a 1950s housewife manual told you should be.
Yeah.
Rick, I can't even.
So yeah, it was it as I've mentioned, it wasn't a big deal. But it was a big deal. Like, it meant an awful lot to me. I chose, like, pansexual as a label because I don't. We were having this discussion the other day, weren't we? Like, bisexual doesn't fit, doesn't feel right for me. Like,
Doesn't hit right.
I just don't. It's too binary for me. Like, I am attracted to people. It doesn't matter what gender they are. It doesn't matter if they've had some kind of transition. It doesn't matter if they're gender non-conforming. Like, so the bi in bisexual doesn't really. It didn't hit right for me.
And I do want to say that, like, that's not the only interpretation of bisexual. That, like,
Yeah.
bisexual is not inherently transphobic or anything like that. Just to be super clear, like, that's not what we're saying. We're saying for you, it didn't feel right.
Yes.
It can feel right for lots of people who function very similar to how you're expressing pansexuality. That is valid.
Yeah.
Multiple gender attraction, omnisexual, all of those things are super valid. I just want to be really clear that what you're talking about is you. And not that bisexual is inherently binary, or, like, some people, like, there's just multiple versions of it. So I just want to be really clear that we're not, like, saying bisexual is a bad term.
No, not at all. And thank you for clarifying that. It's just like, that's the pictures that come to mind when I think about it. Like, that's just my interpretation. You know, when I was saying earlier about how, like, I need the labels so I can sort the things in the right places in my head. That letter doesn't go in that pigeonhole. That's just the way that it works for me. So, with us sort of talking about, like, oh, okay, so, hang on, I'm missing chat. It's a straight thing, causes, because to cishet dudes it's an acceptable fantasy because it benefits them. Yeah, absolutely. And then Amanda's saying she's the opposite to me. She tried pan out for a few years, but it didn't sit right, so started using bi. But my definition of bi is basically what yours is of pan. And I've heard different interpretations of
And that's
bi.
the beauty of different labels.
Exactly that. Like, I've heard people say, like, they use bisexual because to them the bi in bisexual is same and different.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and but yeah, like Gemma says, that's why it's so wonderful, and that's why labels are important, because of that visibility that I was talking about earlier, because of that opportunity to share, because that little word triggers something in your head and makes you ask a question or makes you want to tell a story. Like, that is why it's so gorgeous.
And it's why it's so important that all of these labels exist, and it's why it's so important that all of these discussions happen, because there are people, like, for instance, it's the same way we talk about pronouns, right? Like, for some people it's like any and all pronouns work great, or for some people it's like all of them are acceptable, but I have a favorite. It can be, like, some people prefer this one and not that one. Some people it's just one. And what that means is that, like, there's no wrong answer there. And so, like, this is so in the same way that, like, you identify as pan and Amanda identifies as bi, there is some version in which you are both experiencing attraction to multiple genders.
Mm-hmm.
Different labels work for the two of you. Both are valid.
Mm-hmm.
And without those discussions, it's hard to figure out what works. Like, when my gateway drug to lesbian was sapphic, because sapphic communities were the ones that talked to all women attracted to women.
Mm-hmm.
And it was very much like for pansexual women, bisexual women, lesbian women, trans women, cis women, all of this stuff was like there. And it was this like way of taking the like WLW, which is woman loves woman, which sometimes is like challenging because of different gender identities and people who are especially gender fluid feeling like they fit into that when they do fit into the sapphic community, right? So, like, that was the gateway to me being like, oh yeah, lesbian, because that was me understanding the terminology better. That's why all these terms are so important.
Yeah. So, I had another query.
Mm-hmm.
When I was doing some research about this and thinking about, this episode, I was wondering, and I asked this as well on the socials, on Twitter, on Tumblr, and if someone feels safe enough to come out, should they ever hear a response such as, "Oh, we already knew. Oh, it's obvious. Oh God, we knew since you were 3 years old." And I wondered what people thought.
Can I give like one of my interpretations of this question too?
Yeah.
Which is like, I think that this question sounds different, or this answer sounds different depending on the context. Like, it's possible for a 7-year-old to come out, and it's possible for a 97-year-old to come out and older. Yes, see, Rick, it depends on the context and who it comes from. Rick and I sometimes are like on the exact same brain line. So it just, like, can they ever hear that? Is it ever okay to hear that? Is different than, is that how you should get used to responding?
Well, see, I mean, I am very two ends of the spectrum, right? I am very much like, poof, deadpan. You don't understand, like, you can't read me, or I'm the opposite. And I tried to keep that sentence neutral. I tried to keep that question neutral because I wanted to hear everyone's interpretations of it. So that wasn't, it wasn't loaded, it wasn't meant to be pointed, it was just, yeah, like, what do you think? Like, what's your opinion? So Rick in chat was saying, for me, it massively depends on context and who it comes from. My family said it to me and it felt gorgeous. John's saying, my sister said it to me, I was fine with it. Tom is saying that he doesn't think he'd ever say it to someone because it feels like you're stealing a moment. Which I have, like, that hasn't happened to me, but I read about it, and that's what actually prompted me to ask the question. So Jinx was saying, when my BFF came out to me as bi, I said, why limit yourself? Was that okay? She was nervous. I wanted to make her laugh and feel loved. I mean, Jinx, I wasn't there. I don't know. No? Cerulean, my mum said something similar, and it was definitely the only part of my coming out experience that felt a little off. And Flinksy's saying it sounds... Oh, go on, sorry.
Go ahead.
No, you.
Flinksy said, it sounds very negating of the coming out process, though. Rick goes on to say, there's a massive assumption there that people want their coming out to be a moment. I didn't. I was petrified it was going to be a big deal. My family were like, yeah, we knew, no big deal. And that made me feel normal. Wibble said, there's also a response to me which feels a lot worse, but also a tangent. So, but you don't look gay, bi, queer, etc. I got those in the wrong order, Wibble, sorry, but yeah. Yeah, I think... Did you wanna answer it for you, Liz? How you feel?
I think my opinion's probably shifted. I think when I had a lot of anxiety. I had a lot of, like, yeah, okay, it was a big deal, but not a big deal. But also, I was very, very scared of what people would think of me. So also, while on one hand it was like I think everyone already knows, I was kind of scared of the reactions to it as well. So for me, I think when I first came out, if I had had a reaction like, yeah, we already knew, I think that would have worried me, because I would have probably been like, oh shit, like, was I giving off a vibe? Did you ever think I was hitting on you? Did you ever think, like, you know, insert any combination of worries ever? I think now I like to think I'm a bit more like, cool, did you? That's nice. Some days I'm really, really ecstatic that I give off a vibe. Other days I'm a bit like, oh, what makes you think that? That makes me a little paranoid. So again, just context. Mm-hmm. Context. And like I said earlier, this wasn't loaded, it wasn't pointed. I was just curious. I just had a query.
Yeah. And I think, like, what Moni and Rick are saying right now, Moni's saying, and I'm going to go back to Cerulean's comment too. But this is for this moment. I wonder if that we already knew moments will be way more frequent nowadays because everything around that is starting to shift so much. I.e., I think what Moni's saying is there's fewer assumptions of, it's not the same reveal. And Rick's saying, for reference, I don't think my opinion is correct. I don't think there's a right or wrong, but it's definitely worth discussing because it depends on validating the person who is coming out. For me, it was right. For others, it isn't. And I think, like, what I want, what feels important to me, and then Cerulean, I'll come back to your point because it works into mine, is that it does depend on who's saying it, but it also depends on why. Like, we already knew could be like, yeah, you've been dating a guy for 3 years, so we figured that out. Or, something like that, like, or, we know that we knew that your high school best friend was more than that kind of stuff. And that feels one way. But for me, I dislike, it's not about the moment. It's that in the same way that my coming out was literally a gut punch about this idea, was very much a, you never know me better than I know me, because I live in me and I try really hard. And other people may pick up on things, but it depends on what they're picking up for. Like what they're picking up. And for me, I think in a lot of cases, the we already knew, in many cases, not all of them, and not even maybe the majority, different to what happened to Rick, which was, I think, very much a sense of like Rick's family knows them really well. And so for them, it was this sense of like, we know you and it's okay and it's not a big deal, which is very different than, yeah, you wear those like flamboyant clothes. Like sometimes it's so based in stereotype. Of course we knew you were
Yeah.
gay. You listen to Britney Spears. Straight men can listen to Britney Spears, thank you.
What?
Like, so it depends on whether they're like feeding into those stereotypes, because those stereotypes actually are what makes it hard for people to come out when they don't fit them.
Yeah.
And so when you're feeding into those stereotypes of what gay isn't, what gay is, same as what Wibble said, you don't look this, you do look this, whatever, it's feeding those stereotypes, and that doesn't help anyone. If it's coming from a place of, we know you, we know your soul, we've been waiting for you to tell us until you were comfortable, that feels really different than, you've been wearing purple for 3 days, Robert. There's like such a different sense there, right?
Yeah.
And so for me, like with what Cerulean said about it being a big realization for her, but her mom just being like, oh yeah, I already knew. For some people, coming out is painful. It has taken years and years of sorting shit out. And so when someone else says, it's not even about like whether it's a big deal or not, it's about being dismissive of maybe how worked up they are to tell it. And so I think, I think that's part of it. Um,
Yeah. And like, I it's hard. It's hard for me because I have so many feelings. I have so many feelings.
that's why we're doing this show.
But very, very similarly to like Cerulean, like I was worried about so many things, and it took me so long to work out, and it took me so many hours talking to people and finding a label, and for someone to be like, oh yeah, well, but also like, do they know what that means? Like, if I had just said to my mum, oh yeah, I'm pansexual, I, without any like context or without any explanation, I 100% know she would have thrown a, oh, does that mean you like cookware joke at me? Do you know what I mean? Like, it's taken me so long to package up these feelings and put a little tag on it so I understand it for you to fucking make a joke about a kettle, you know? Like, yeah. So, I don't know. Oh, so, AJ, I don't think I would have wanted that response because how could they have known when I didn't? Yeah, exactly that.
Mm-hmm.
It feels invalidating to all of the effort and hardship I went through to figuring it out. So,
Yeah. I think Tom said something that's really valid. To be clear, I think everyone's saying really valid things, but saying like, maybe it's a conversation to have later. Let me see if I can find that. I think it might be something I'd speak about at a later moment. I just don't think it'd be an instant reaction. And I think like that's really valid too. Like later on, I actually, like for me, talking to my best friend who knew me when I was like bitty, little, 5 years old, talking about like, did she ever suspect and stuff is cool to me because it can trigger memories I'd forgotten. It can like, like put things into a different perspective. I love those different perspectives. Those are different conversations than the tearful moment where maybe you're fearing rejection, and maybe like Rick, like you just want it to be normal, you want it to be okay. And so I think like it's not about can you ever have this discussion. It's so much about like if
in the
someone
moment,
comes to you and is sharing this intimate thing and you say we already knew, it depends on like is that it, do you know them well enough to know how they'll take that?
yeah, like,
And
and
I
like
think
you were
that's
saying,
kind of
like,
that moment.
you thinking about your memories with your best friend and whatever, like, again, it's all about context. Like,
Mhm.
you are thinking you're like, you are going back in your own mind, in your own memory, where you have grown, where you have experienced, where you feel safe enough to explore those feelings and to explore those thoughts. That if you are like telling someone for the first time and you've no idea how they're going to react,
Mhm.
you've got that fear. You don't know, like, and I guess we come out all the time. I guess every time I mention like my wife, like, I had a builder in here the other day and he was like, "Oh, where's your husband?" And I'm like, do I say that I don't have a husband? Do I explain that I've got a fiance? Do I just say partner? Like,
Yep.
this person has access to my property 24/7. Like, what do I say in this moment? Yeah, it's just, I don't know.
And I think too though, like part of it is when you are in that moment, you do get a sense, I think, often you can get a sense of like how someone is telling you. Like, are they telling you in a like if they say, "I'm sure you already knew this, but I'm queer," then maybe it's okay to say, "Yeah, we did," because they led with that. If it's clear that they're looking for reassurance and love and like we've loved all of you for
Well, they're
ages,
shaking
like
like a
in
leaf while they're trying to tell you, or
Rick's case, then that's beautiful. If it's like this minimizing, dismissive thing, or if it's based in almost like because sometimes the like we already knew stuff when it's based in stereotype or assumption is actually based in like a lack of caring or like a lack of like paying attention to the exact person. It's like you checked these boxes on my version of what gay is, so I already made the assumption instead of actually talking to you.
yeah,
Okay, Rick's got a comment, so I'm going to read it. To this point, my mom has told me in conversations since that she could see my change as a person, which is why she knew. She wasn't assuming. She saw I got more confidence in myself, that I wasn't as shy about talking about not wanting a girlfriend, that I spoke about feeling out of place in the locker room. As we journey to understand ourselves, we change. And I do think that people closest to us can see that and respect it. Exactly. Like, and I think that's like the same version of like you saying like I think you already knew when you came out because you hadn't been pretending not to be queer. You had been on a journey to self-acceptance that you were openish with, and you'd been flirting with women or like talking about like, oh, this woman on this TV show is hot. And so you were putting out the clues.
yeah.
Rick had been putting out the clues. That's very different than like some of the almost mean spirited or like trying to like shut down in the we are sometimes in the we already knew type.
Yeah, it was very different to being dismissed. Like, I mean, I led with that for those reasons because, I was, there was more of me online and I would be having conversations where people would probably stumble upon them anyway. And a part of it was a defense mechanism, right? Like, if I go in and say it first, you can't say it. It's like me as a plus size person. I was always the fat kid in the playground, right? I'm the
Mhm.
first person to call me fat, so you can't do it like to me. Do you know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like, it was
Power.
a similar sort of thing. Yeah.
I think too that like one of the I had and this wasn't planned for the show, but I did kind of want to bring it up is Liz and I were having a conversation with some friends today, and Garrett, who was in chat, and work pulled him away. But just about how like one of the reasons it's hard to come out, and in fact, the Geek Herring Book Club, the 2000s Made Me Gay, talked a little bit about this too. That author, the author of it, whose name slips my mind in just
Grace
this moment,
Perry.
but I'll grab it. Grace Perry, thank you very much. About this whole like when I came out, it felt like I was telling everyone who I wanted to sleep with, is what she said. Like, I'm not sleeping with anyone yet, but if I was, it would be this gender, is what Grace Perry said in the book, The 2000s Made Me Gay. And today, talking about like being queer as a teenager with our friend Garrett, one of the things we were talking a little bit about was like how it was okay to be gay, but being in gay places was a challenge because our parents thought all gay shit was sexual and not just like cultural. And so I think part of coming out, because there's this assumption that queerness is about sex only, which it isn't. There's like cultural piece, like queer culture, I mean. There's so much about queer culture and drag culture and all of that stuff that has nothing to do with sex and everything to do with artistic expression, knowing people who are like you, representation, all of that stuff. So sometimes coming out can like, especially with a kid, the a younger person, meaning like someone that the parent's not comfortable with being sexual yet, which is a whole other thing. Coming out can feel like talking about sex with people. And I think that
Yeah.
sometimes that's like also a challenge, right? Because mainstream culture has turned it so much into sex, 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 when it's actually more about like, I'm actually talking about how I want to live my life, or love, or community, or gender.
Expression.
Like, yeah. Yeah, Flinksy, like there's just areas where it's very, and I think that's the slippery slope that we're on. This is a tangent, but I'm just gonna go there and then I can be done. Um, there's a slippery slope there that we've allowed ourselves to get on as queer people, and that mainstream culture has pressed upon us around queerness, queer culture being just about sex. That is a slippery slope that allows drag queen story time in libraries to be seen as a sexualizing of children, when it's someone in a costume, someone in a character, same as a play, drama, whatever, reading to children. The difference between that and the librarian dressing up as little Bo Peep and reading to the kids, I don't know. But here we are. Or bathrooms or things like that, because all of this has been sexualized as if queer existence is only a sexual existence.
Yeah.
And that plays into the challenges of coming out in these spaces, especially in the southern US, in some more conservative cultures and places like that, and in more conservative families, um, where what they see you as saying is, here's who I want to have sex with, and what you're actually saying is, here's how I want to live my life, here's how I feel pushed, here's how I see the world, this is the lens that I see the world through, I'm attracted to these people, I'm interested in these things, I'm, and this is part of my culture. So anyway, I just wanted to say that like the inherent sexualization of queer culture can make coming out even harder.
Yeah. Agreed.
Yeah, Rick, we have no problems telling a 4-year-old, look at your little boyfriend. But a drag queen reading a story to that child is sexual. Feelings. Anyway.
I mean, very, very valid feelings for sure.
But like back to coming out. So I think that like coming out is a process, and you were talking about that, right, with the builder, and it was a process for both of us. Both Amanda and Jay shared coming out stories in the Discord, and maybe we'll leave them in the Discord for right now. But it was like a journey, right, of around acceptance. You come out to friends, you come out to family, and you have a sense that sometimes it's going to go well and sometimes it's not.
Yeah.
And sometimes we're pleasantly surprised, and sometimes we're actually heartbroken. But I think for a lot of people, I'd say like mid-20s and up, coming out is still a part of life. Like coming out, as if you're queer, coming out is still a part of life. And it doesn't need to be a post on Facebook that says I'm coming out. Posting a picture of you and your same-sex partner is also a version of coming out.
Yeah.
In a like, I didn't feel I need to make an announcement, but I have my girlfriend with me, is still a version of coming out.
That visibility again, though, right?
Yeah. Yeah, so that's where
So
where
do
we're
we
at on that.
think there's ever going to be a time where people don't come out? So obviously, well, I say obviously, you might have seen in the news that Noah Schnapp from Stranger Things came out as gay. I saw it. I think Moni had posted it in a Discord server. I was on a call with Jem and read it out loud. And she said, "Oh, came out as what?"
Yeah, I didn't know. Because it could be, because it could be came out as gay,
Mm-hmm.
right? Which also, I just need to say, we have a Google Doc that we
I
use
was
for
just
each
about to say
episode.
this.
Okay, go ahead.
Gemma typed in our show notes. Noah Schnapp came out as gay.
As gay. So I typoed as gay as ass gay. So here we are. Um, and I'm just reading it now, like, because we're in that part of the notes, and I'm like, oh, Jem, come on now. But so yeah, my first question was came out as what? Because to me, like, it could be like gay, but it could also be like non-binary, asexual. Like, it could be like there's not just like coming out doesn't mean just one thing now. Um, and so I kind of think that's exciting because when I was a teenager, when we talked about people coming out, they were gay. Like, that's it. And now, like, when I hear like, oh, someone's come out, it means so many things, and I think that that's a huge compliment to our culture, that we're at a point where we don't just like, it could be any number of things and we're happy for them and whatever, right?
But
Like,
it
I
does make
think
me
not
wonder
to
whether
be
it's going to
dismissive.
shift in that people won't, in terms of sexuality, people might not come out anymore, but they might come out as not cis, or they might come out as gender non-conforming, or I don't know. Like, yeah, I'm just interested to see how things might shift, because I was also reading like an article about an 11-year-old girl was speaking to her parents, and she told her parents that she was queer, and in the article it asked the question like, can anyone, so I'm just reading the quote now, it said, can anyone who announces their sexual orientation at such an age be labelled as coming out, or having ever been in the closet? That terms such as coming out feel antiquated and out of touch with today's reality. So I'm just wondering if we are ever going to get to that shift where it doesn't happen at all. I don't know.
I mean, so I want to like really respect what Rick said around and like the Kit Connor thing. I would prefer not to get too much into Kit Connor's outing because I struggle a lot with that. Because it's and not to like avoid things that make me unhappy, but I just it's no, I don't mean it that way. Like, I don't mean please apologize for like, I just mean like, that's like, I don't know that talking about it helps his situation any, because the problem was that everyone was
Was talking
talking
about
about
it,
him
yeah.
without his consent, right? So like, for me, not that we shouldn't talk about it, but for me in this moment and the spirit of the show, I think that that's like, I'm going to remark on it but not like editorialize. Um but I think like, I'm trying, well, I do think like anyway, what I was saying is like, I think Rick's really valid in saying, like, Rick's point is really valid in saying like, we've got a long way to go, and I do think that's true. I also think we've come a long way in Western culture in the last 300 years. And I'm being very specific about that because there were cultures and our cultures that have survived on the land that I am now in Canada, who had multiple genders living in
Yep.
their community and accepted it. And I
Yep.
don't mean accepted it like tolerated. I mean, it was like completely normal. There was
Interwoven
no,
into the
it
entire
was interwoven
society,
into
there
their
being,
spirituality
yeah.
even. So the reason I'm saying Western culture 300 years is I'm contextualizing that to not be like that's the only history that's ever
Yeah.
existed. Because there have been lots of times where it's been really normal to be versions of queer, and normal meaning unexceptional. So But in the last 300 years, I think about how we went from, again, going to talk about something traumatizing, but not in detail. We went from things like in the Second World War, gay people being victims of Hitler's genocide to the two of us doing the show today.
Yeah.
That's less than 100 years. So we do have a long way to go, but I also believe it's possible for us to get there very quickly relative to the length of human history. Or not to be like negative, but like, or go backwards or not move at all. Like, I just think there's so much possibility there. I do think that it's possible that there will in like in not recent in like the near future, there will be times when we don't come out. Um, but our society needs to look different than it does now
Yeah.
because it's not about whether we come out based on our feelings. It's about the society we're brought up in and whether we have realizations that we feel we need to share because someone else otherwise will assume a different course for our lives.
Yeah. There we go.
Yeah, I hear that. Rick says, I want to live in the Schitt's Creek universe where no one fucking cares. Yeah. So I think that like I don't know what that looks like, right? Because so much of, and I've mentioned this before, so much of our queer stories are sharing coming out stories, sharing those stories. But I believe that there will always be stories that we have to share, and they don't actually have to be about moments when we realized we were different. They can be moments when we realized who we were. That
Realized
it's not
that
about
we were the same,
comparison.
or realized that we belonged to the same community, or yeah.
And but not even that, like, yes, that, but not even just that, right? Like, where when you realize what you are, it is not inherently about comparing to anyone, whether it's same or different. It's simply you made realizations that you liked something or you were creative or you were whatever. And so we're always going to tell stories of discovery.
Oh yeah,
So the
that's what I mean.
question is,
Like when I talk about like realizing that we belong, yeah, is exactly that. Is realizing that like we can share. We're like, sorry, carry on.
no, go ahead.
No, carry on.
But yeah, so I just think like if coming out is seen as a moment where we declare ourselves different, yes, there will be an end to that at some point. If coming out is the moment where we share discoveries we've made about ourselves to other people, everyone will be coming out forever.
I love that.
Yeah,
I think
that's
that's
all.
that. Unless you've got anything else to add.
I don't think so. I think that like just like one message, and I think that we all here are very much like the people chatting and things like that. Like we know our community, but so I don't know if this message needs to hit anyone's ears, but I'm going to share it anyway, which is it's okay to not be ready to come out.
Yes,
It's
that's true.
okay. You don't need to come out to be valid. You don't need to come out for any reason. Take your time. The time may never feel right, but at some time it might feel like the right time for you. Don't out people, allow people to tell their own stories at their own times. And if you feel like you are in a closet or worried about opening that door, it's okay. You're still valid. You're still part of the community. Um, your coming out stories for you. And so don't ever let anyone else determine it for you if you can.
Yeah.
Not in a victim blaming way, but don't ever feel that pressure. I know it's tough. I promise you're valid.
Yeah, and thank you. Like the trouble with having something or doing something self-reflective is that you see things from your viewpoint often. So thank you for bringing that up because I hadn't, not that I hadn't thought about it, I hadn't put it in the show notes, I hadn't given myself a prompt to talk about it. But yeah, just to say that I completely agree, and to reiterate, like, your safety is paramount. Your physical safety, your emotional safety. If it's not the time to come out, it's not the time. And yeah, like you say, it's okay if there's never a right time.
Mm-hmm.
And like Rick says, coming out day is not an excuse to out your closeted friend. And we will throw bricks if it happens.
And just know that, like, coming out doesn't validate anything.
Yeah.
Whether something is valid or not is in your heart, in your soul, in your being, and no one else ever gets to cast on that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And if it's time, we're excited. Welcome.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. That's all. Should we update people on our schedule change? It's just a little change. I don't know if anyone's really going to notice but us, but
Yeah, probably not.
yeah.
Probably not. Go on then.
Yeah, so we're taking 2 weeks off so that we can reset our schedule, because we're basically on all the wrong weeks for things that are happening in our lives that we don't have much control over.
Yeah.
Because
Ooh.
2 weeks from this moment, I will be returning back home here from the visa center, having given my biometrics for my residence permit for the UK.
Woo! Hype, hype, hype!
So I have an appointment to give they do all of the, like, fingerprinting, eye scanning, pictures, all of that stuff. And I've got an appointment 2 weeks from today. And would love lots of finger crosses for that. To go get my residence permit sorted, and fingers crossed. I mean, lots of things can happen, obviously. But with the current process, knowing what we know, about 12-ish, 12 to 16-ish, depending on how it goes, weeks after that, in the mail, will get my entry clearance and my passport, and I will be approved to permanently relocate to the UK. So we're not streaming 2 weeks from now.
And then what happens 2 weeks after that?
So 2 weeks after that, oh, right. Oh my God. I'm so excited about other stuff that I'm like, right. Liz will be here and it's her first full day in the UK, or in Canada.
In the Canada.
So that's going to be a little rough to stream on. And then 4 weeks after that, it's Liz's first day back in the UK after being in Canada.
So we're on the wrong Monday.
We're on the wrong weeks. And we were going to tough out the 2 Liz travel times because it was like, whatever. But then when the biometric stuff happened on top of it, it was very much a like, we just need to change. So we're taking 2 weeks off. We'll be back on the 30th.
Correct.
And then every other week, so that we've reset, so that we can, like, do the thing. And rather than try to cram in another show next week that we aren't quite ready for, because we're still doing all of the immigration stuff and biometric stuff and wedding stuff and all of that, we're taking 2 weeks off. So we'll be back on the 30th, and then every 2 weeks from then.
Yes. Amanda did a great job in actually reducing some of our decision paralysis, because we were like, do we double bubble? Are we going to do a back-to-back? And she was like, well, I've reset it. It's set for the 30th. And I'm like, great.
Yep.
Decision made. Thank you very much. Yes, so check the panels and the schedule below, because it's got all of the info about all of the fantastic things happening on Geek Herring TV / Geek Herring Productions. We'll see you on the 30th.
No, we don't even know what that show's going to be yet.
No, we don't.
We haven't picked it, which is why we didn't want to do next week, because we knew
we need prep time.
The last week has been like full out for the 2 of us with immigration stuff and some wedding stuff.
Oh my God, Keith Herring TV would be dope though. Sick. Sorry.
Yeah. So yeah, it's all very exciting, but we're giving ourselves a couple weeks to breathe while we reset the schedule anyway. So we'll see you on the 30th.
Yeah, and I think that's us. What I did want to say though, just because because it's all still, episode 2, and I don't really know what I'm doing, wanted to say thank you on behalf of Geek Caring Collective for the resubs and the hype train that we had. And thank you, Panda, for the raid, and thank you for all the new follows. Thank you, Cerulean. Thank you, JD. Welcome in, and the Lady X. I hope you enjoyed it.
I think it's worth saying that like Geek Caring Productions has done an amazing job at welcoming people in, helping people succeed, giving us the tools we need to succeed, and compensating for us for it. Like, the success of this channel is our collective success, but it's built off of a tremendous amount of work that Monty and Amanda have done for a number of years. And they've built a brand that they're letting us borrow from now. And it's an honor to help build it. And we're really grateful for that and for the very warm welcome. So, and Amanda I do want to say, like, Amanda is really the like queen of keeping everything running here. But Monty, you don't do nothing. This might be like Geek Caring TV might be Amanda's baby, but you are very supportive and loving and helpful as well.
And it's built on foundations that you helped lay.
Yeah. But Amanda is a superstar, and we are incredibly grateful for all of the love, hype, support, both like material support in terms of like, how is this screen, and like and beyond. So just thanks. And thank you to the community who's welcomed us with open arms and let us ramble every other week about queer shit.
Queer shit, best shit. We like a ramble.
Yeah.
Cool.
So,
should we find someone to raid?
Yeah. Do you have any ideas?
No. To be honest.
I have one.
Oh, okay.
I typed it to you just so you can like give a no before I say it. If there is a no.
Give a no!
If there is a no, I don't think there will be.
Yeah, okay. Oh, let me come up with
sure?
Let me come up with a... We're here to whack you off. Is that one an appropriate one for this person?
I think so.
Yeah? Okay.
I think they know us well enough.
Speak for yourself. We're here to